Thank you very much. We're in the midst of a grave national public health and economic crisis. And as members of Congress, we have an obligation to ensure that Congress can operate. Now, there are different views and perspectives up here in terms of remote voting. We've all tried very hard to work in a bipartisan fashion. We've all tried to reach across the aisle and work with our counterparts on the Democratic side to help to come up with ways that Congress can operate, to help to come up with ways that we can fulfill the constitutional requirement that we be present. Now, in my own view, being present doesn't necessarily require physical presence. I think that remote operations are possible, but that is not the path that the Democrats have gone down. What the Democrats have done, instead of working with us, is use this crisis to try to gain partisan benefit. What the Democrats have done counter to their own report. A number of us, including ranking member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Cole, and the leader and the whip, a number of us have worked closely with the Democrats to try to say, listen, let's come up with ways, as we did after 9/11, that we can operate in the middle of a pandemic. And let's also look for ways to protect us in the future. We know there will be future crises, and we know that we've got to come up with ways that we can operate in the future. There may be circumstances when we cannot assemble at the Capitol. And it may be that we need to look at things like voting remotely. But instead of going down that path, despite the fact that we have tried to work together, after the Speaker of the House delayed for weeks and weeks, refused to even address the issue, she then commissioned a report. The report came up with some interesting suggestions. There were some good suggestions in the report. The report also noted that proxy voting was likely unconstitutional, the Democrats' own report. So instead of going down the path of saying, how can we do this together, the Democrats have adopted a completely partisan scheme, and they have done it in a way that absolutely infringes on the rights of the minority and infringes on the Constitution. And so today, it's a sad day that we have got to be to the position where we're bringing suit against the Speaker. We're bringing suit against the Democrats in order to prevent them from pushing this proxy vote through. And I think it's also really important to mention that one of the first items on which they are planning to use this proxy vote is an item that deals directly with the national security of this nation. Now, I'm hopeful the leader and the whip have asked that they pull that FISA vote. FISA is a crucially important set of authorities, and it's a set of authorities that was abused. We have to make sure that we deal with the abuse and that we address the abuse, but we should not push through a bill which, in my view, would fundamentally weaken our ability to keep the nation safe because of the amendments that have been added to that bill. And we shouldn't do that with proxy vote. Imagine that. You've got millions of Americans across this country who will not be represented because their members have decided to use a proxy. And we're going to pass a bill that's going to fundamentally harm the security of the nation if the Democrats continue down that path. Now, if that's not an abuse of their constitutional authority and power, I can't imagine what is. So I urge the Democrats to pull that bill, and I also urge them to rescind this rule that allows proxy voting. There are ways that we can work together. As I said, many of us have been public about wanting to do that. This is not a time for partisanship. It's not a time to try to take partisan advantage of a crisis.